We're back for another recap. Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY, and I went ahead and added the zone back on the board. We've had this zone on the board since before they got down into it, so sometime back at the beginning of March. And we're in April now, so at least a month. There's some significance to it when we take into consideration what I mentioned in the game plan this morning. We'll look at that shortly, about what price might do with this zone. We had levels above it, levels below it. While we haven't used this zone for tradable levels, it's still important in the big picture. And the fact they got below it on Friday, couldn't get above it yesterday, and got in the middle of it today, and where they close 560.97, 3 pennies away from the bottom of the zone. But what we want to talk about is what they did when they were in the middle of it. And in terms of forecast, where they might be going, I don't want to state the obvious. There's just a lot of back and forth. Pretty clear to see that. And in the big picture, so on this daily chart, they're well below important averages. Same thing on the weekly chart. It's kind of getting to where the big picture is starting to look weaker. We keep getting more and more signals that the bulls just don't seem to have what it takes to get price above some important areas. So speaking of those important areas, as part of what I talked about in the game plan, you can read through this. Here's the levels, a couple zones at the top. In this last paragraph here, just talking about that zone, 561 to 563.65. I wanted to see if price could get above that. If they could get above that zone, there were levels that they could fight. And if they got above those levels and fought those successfully, that was a pretty good sign. So really, this was kind of in the spirit of giving price more wiggle room because of the, air quotes, unusual market activity with some of the bigger moves we're seeing lately. So the last sentence here kind of sums it up. For today, I preferred to let the market settle in and just see if we could provide some more clues about where they might go in the bigger picture. I didn't want to speculate about what direction was more probable today because I really did not see any evidence of that on any of the charts. So anyway, this information here will come in handy when we look at the daily chart in a minute. When we look at how price reacted at the levels, here are all the levels and zones for today. And I added the zone here, the lighter blue dashed lines. We'll zoom in here and talk about how they would have been traded. So price didn't really do anything with our levels. They came down here, found a bottom, which is always kind of important to find why price reversed at an area called 553.50-ish to 554. This area they bounced. Haven't gone back and looked at that too closely just yet. But in terms of our levels, they got up to 561.70. So 561 was not a tradable level. This zone is just here for reference. But 561.70 was. Then you can see that was a pretty good pullback from there, 10 points or so. So a 4-point base hit was easy. And they hit this level several times, couldn't get above it. Once they got above it, they're in the middle of this zone. And this is what I meant in the game plan about if price could get above this zone, I want to see what they would do with these other levels here. So the level from the morning is important. And when they're in the middle of the zone and they're starting to fall back down here, while there was just enough time, what I'm pointing to here is 12:07 p.m. They got back down into this level exactly 20 minutes later, just about 12:27. So the question is, would you have wanted to take a recycle trade for expecting a bounce for them to go higher? Generally, I would say yes, but knowing where they are in the big picture and knowing there's a lot of overhead resistance here, this is that idea of let's see what they would do with this zone first. The way they came up into 561.70 was ideal. Right up into the level, pretty much in a more or less straight line, pulled away a little bit, give us a profitable trade. They get above it. They're dropping pretty hard down into this level again. I want to see what they're going to do. So I don't really want to count this as a recycle trade. I did do the analysis to see what would have happened had you chosen to take a long trade when they came back down to this level a few minutes later. And you would have given away a handful of points and had at least a base hit when they reversed down. But once again, this is big picture stuff here. This whole area was overhead resistance. So the first time they're hitting this area, there's usually going to be a bigger reaction, but giving them another chance, like right now, I believe the post-market, they're back up into this area again. They're in the middle of the zone currently. You can see what they did after the closing bell. They hung around the lower part of the zone. They got back up into it above the level we had at 561.70. And the futures have the ability to push price higher in the overnight session. We'll find out in the morning. So playing by the rules, understanding the big picture, seeing some clues, you would have taken one trade, got a base hit here, and that would have been it for the rest of the day. Here is what that looks like on the log. We're in April, so this is the first day of April. One base hit at that level, nothing else. And as you saw already, no trades for me all day. Pretty busy day. Wasn't able to do much at all other than just let the recording go, just so I'd have evidence that there were no trades for me for the entire day. some point the market's going to settle into some type of trend. They're just in the middle of things right now. The bulls obviously would like to go higher, but the way they're acting, we could wake up to something different each morning. And then throughout the day, things might happen that might kind of defy what you might expect. So I would not call that settled in just yet. And settling in could look like a continued leg lower, but I think it's a little too early to say that. We'll see what they do for the rest of this week and into next week in this pretty large range they're going sideways in. Still messing around with that zone that we've had on the board for about a month now. So that's a wrap for today. Thanks for watching. We'll get some more levels on the board tomorrow, do this whole thing over again, try to pick up a few base hits, make up for lost ground. Getting base hits is the plan. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great day.